Hi, welcome to Maintain Me's resource channel. I'm Morgan, I'm the director.
And I'm Chelsea. I am the RN owner for Maintain Me.
And today we want to talk to you about how to talk with your loved ones about your situation. And we're going to bring to you a specific example that we actually just had this week. So we had a gentleman reach out to us. We will call him Philip for our intents and purposes here. And Philip's parents live locally, so does Philip in Colorado here. And Philip needed to have a conversation with his parents because he is seeing their struggles and he didn't know how to reach them to say, hey, what do you think about some more help? Or just to generally have that conversation, see how they were feeling and try to reach them before any kind of crisis or anything, just really pre-planning. So Chelsea, you met with Philip and his family this week. Tell us about how that went.
Absolutely. So I think Philip had been having this conversation with his parents for quite a while, and it did actually result. She had a knee replacement because things were getting harder at home, and she had gone to rehab and kind of had a traumatic event where she had fallen there and now has a broken femur and is trying to be at home and with the support of her family. So he has been having these conversations with his family, probably the same conversations I had, but it needed to come from another source. So
yeah, well, that makes sense. Sometimes you're just too close to the problem.
Absolutely.
How did it go? How did your meeting with them go?
So what I kept hearing around the table was people were kind of tiptoeing around each other. And they wanted me to, I would say something and say, oh yeah, uh-huh. Almost like each person had a different agenda at the table. And so I identified first that we needed to kind of find out where everybody was before I can bring in any education. And so we started with Philip, and we just talked about it. I said, how are things going? And what are you helping with in the situation? And got down all the way to find out that he was, in the garage even for a week or so to help out. They live in a small 1-bedroom house. So I guess it's 2-bedroom, but 1 level, but he was helping and living in the garage out of this sense of obligation. And so we kind of brought that to light of saying, obviously that's not very sustainable to live in the garage and help your parents. And they too agreed. They didn't want him in the garage, especially with out here, we have those fires. And so we were able to bring that to light very obviously, and then kind of go from there of this isn't working with Philip's help.
Right. So yeah, no, living in the garage is probably not sustainable in the winter. So that's a great place to start. And sometimes it's just as simple as pointing out, this isn't a plan. This is a Band-Aid. And do you feel like that was the start of having maybe an epiphany for them?
Yeah. So, the next resolution or the next solution that they had come up with is that the husband would be helping the wife, right? His parents. And so I asked him point blank in front of everybody, I said, hey, how is that going? You're having to do a lot for your wife that you weren't having to do this. You have to remember this lady was very independent. So having this traumatic event of having a broken femur and being wheelchair bound was not only a shocker to everybody, she went in for knee surgery, right? So this was a big shocker for the whole family. And so they had to step up into this caregiver role rather quickly. And then on top of that, they all had this one, I don't know what I'm doing, almost a sense of obligation because this is this is his person. And then for the family, like, yeah, mom, you're here. We moved you here to be closer to us. Whatever we can do to help, we're here. So when I asked the husband, and the father of Philip, how's that going? He was very open about saying, I'm not, number one, I don't really know what I'm doing. And it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But that he was happy to do it. Right. So we had to kind of, open that up saying that, your job is to be her husband, and stepping into this caregiver role is a very hard thing to do, especially with the amount of time that they had. So, having that out loud for the mother and his wife who was actually receiving the help, I think and she was the most resistant. So I think it was the most helpful to hear her family say, like, we're here for you, but it's hard.
Yeah. And that's really hard to accept help for someone who's completely fiercely independent, the matriarch, taking care of everybody, always running around, never sleeping, never stopping, and to go to being wheelchair bound. I mean, that has to take an emotional toll as well as, pride and everything else. So how did it go for her? What did mom say after she heard these two men that love her give their sides?
Yeah, I think we got kind of blessed in the way that we started with the caretakers first, because if we started with her first, they might have felt, because if she went in and said, "Hey, everything's going great," or "They're doing such a great job, I'm so grateful," I don't know if they would have had the same confidence to step up and tell me the things that were hard. So when she, being the mom and the wife and really the primary caretaker of this family for many years until recently, I think she was able to put some of her fears aside that were preventing her from accepting care. So because she had fallen under the care of a care facility, she just assumed all care into that space of that fear of things happening again. And so she was able to say, okay, my family's having a hard time. Yes, I have this fear, but I obviously need to put them first. I think it's easy for her. It was easy for her, being a mom and a wife, to put them first. And after hearing them say that, her fear was not that it was put aside, but it was kind of diminished a little bit so that she could really hear that. She was like, okay, I need to think about my family, and this isn't working for them. So it allowed her to kind of open up to, okay, maybe I should get help because they're having a hard time, and I'm their mom, or I'm his wife. I need to take care of my people. So it just kind of organically fell into place for them to kind of open up into what else was available for them.
So having that third person to come in and not have any big revelations, but just bring everyone together for a calm, focused conversation really brought the matter to the surface. And do you feel like they felt better? Did they have a solution?
Yeah, so when I went into the home, our goal was to put them into a consulting program and help this two couple age in place. But what we discovered through all of this is that that wasn't necessarily what they wanted. It's just that each of them thought they wanted something different. The son thought that they wanted to stay at home. The husband wants to move, but he thought the wife wanted to stay at home, and the wife was just afraid of having the same situation and thought everything else was fine. So once we uncovered, and I just did triggering questions, but once we uncovered those things, by the time I left, they had asked me to look into care facilities of, they wanted to be, she says she's really social and she actually would love to meet more people. And this now consulting program has opened them up to, not only they were open to then getting care in the home, and then by the end of the conversation, when everyone was talking openly, then they said, you know what, we want to look into a care facility because there's things there that I think would benefit us more. So it just went from a 360, from talking about how we felt to, okay, I'm ready to accept help. And on top of that, I'm ready to uproot out of my home and move into a place together. So it was a very interesting transition.
Wow, that's really cool. I mean, just your presence in the conversation and just being open really helped them resolve some of their fears and a lot of the guilt that was going on. So one thing you mentioned, a care facility. You're referring to assisted living or independent living when you say that?
Yeah, at this point, they're looking at assisted living because they would really benefit from the meals. We were going to supplement meals in the house, but the meals would be a big thing for them. So they want to have that taken off. So assisted living is kind of the best way to go for that, as well as she has a lot of care needs as she recovers through this injury. So I think now we're looking at assisted living, which is not what we were expecting, but everybody's very excited and they're all talking, and the entire mood has changed. I think it all comes down when you're talking with families to ask triggering questions, to allow them a space to talk openly. If they're kind of beating around the bush, to be very precise in the type of questions we're asking and almost give them an out, because I would ask them, how's that going? I know that can be hard, and allowing them to open that up. So again, if you have the right conversations, if we're getting in there early, if you have a third person that can help, some of this conflict resolution and, or, getting families together to have those hard conversations will really open up a safety net for them to create solutions within their own being. I didn't have to do a lot outside of just be there to help them talk through that. So
it was probably simpler and less scary than Philip thought in the beginning, wasn't it?
Oh, he was so excited. We went outside and he said, oh, I've been saying this forever. And I just, thank you so much. And it just was so great. And now I went back inside. He wrote me 30 minutes after saying, hey, Chelsea, they actually decided they wanted to transition. Can you get me a list tomorrow? And I said, absolutely. So it just, wow. I didn't do much besides just be there and allow them a space to talk. And I think that's sometimes all you need when you're stuck in the situation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you. That's really, that covers our topic for today. And Chelsea, you did a great job as usual. So without further ado, we are
signing off.